is being made and will be published on the council's website. Please switch your microphones on when addressing the council and off when you have finished. So thank you for your patience with me. Prayers will be taken by the Reverend Michael Hogg from Brighton Road Baptist Church.
Thank you very much for your invitation for me to be able to lead these prayers. Let us pray. Our loving Heavenly Father, you command us in your holy scriptures to first of all pray for those in authority with petitions, intercession and thanksgiving, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. This is good and pleases God our Saviour. So we thank you, Almighty God, for the privilege of this day being able to come before you in prayer through Christ Jesus, our Saviour and Lord. We thank you for our lives and our loved ones in these days. We thank you for meaningful work and responsibilities, for our homes and community. We thank you that each one of us is here today is able to serve you and serve others in this world you have loved and made. I thank you for all of those who give of themselves sacrificially in service through the work of Horsham District Council and through other areas of service to the Horsham community. Thank you for their desire to serve others in whatever ways they're enabled and authorised to do what is good and pleasing in your sight. I pray for all deliberations, discussions and decisions this evening that you will grant wisdom and insight to those who govern, grant your help and strength and good understanding of all matters. And I pray that through those gathered here in this place, you will be bringing about your good purposes for the people of Horsham. Thank you for your great love for each one of us, and I pray the peace of Christ Jesus to be upon each one and all proceedings. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Michael. Please be seated. Good. The first item this evening, apologies for absence. I have councillors Brian Donnelly, Christine Costin, Francis Haig, Richard Landieu, Mike Morgan, Jim Sanson and Josh Potts, who have all sent apologies. On pages 5 to 12, the minutes of the 1st of September, I move that the minutes of the meeting of the council held on the 1st of September be approved as correct records. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Does anybody wish to comment on the accuracy of the minutes? I take that as a no. So if you all agreed, may I sign the minutes as a correct record? Thank you. To receive declarations of interest from members, does any member have an interest to declare in respect of any item on tonight's agenda? Yeah, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding item 6, I am a member of the Royal British Legion and also a neighbourhood councillor for Trafalgar.
Thank you. Announcements. There are some announcements tonight. I'd like to make one, firstly, just to say that it's a reminder, Sunday evening, the civic service, an opportunity, I think, for us as councillors, both to acknowledge the council and its importance, but also an opportunity for us to meet afterwards socially, something we haven't been able to do for quite a long time. So if you are able, and I've already had numerous replies in the affirmative, please come and join us at 6 o'clock on Sunday evening at St Mary's, followed by the refreshments afterwards at the barn. So it's an opportunity to come and share together, and I do want to highlight it. The other point I would make, and it's encouraging, 2 weeks ago I met Her Royal Highness Princess Anne, who made one comment to me, which was, "We've got a lovely park." Quite encouraging for all those who have to do with the parks, that she noticed our park, and while I didn't have much else of a conversation, that I thought was encouraging. So those are my announcements. Liz, announcements.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes. I was at Roy Cornell's funeral online on Monday, and I wanted to mark the event of his passing at council today. I only knew Roy as a fellow district councillor and not socially. However, it was interesting and also inspiring to hear his eulogy at the service. Roy had many talents and facets which some here know more about than I do. For me, as a new councillor, he was kind and patient. He helped me in my initial time in the council and was a good mentor. I also saw him as a straight, honest man who absolutely did the best for the people in his patch. I know these talents and character traits are recognized irrespective of political shade, and we will miss it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Lee. And I'm sure we will miss it. Well, I echo those sentiments. Thank you. Cabinet members' announcements. Councillor Eagles.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. As I announced at our last council meeting, I wrote to all the local GP surgeries on behalf of residents. So far, I've had a number of responses, and it's very clear to me that all the surgeries across our district are working incredibly hard to see as many patients as they can. Like the council, they've had to adapt to meet the challenges placed on them by COVID. But each reply demonstrates that despite their unprecedented demand, GPs are doing their utmost to assist their patients. It's also important to note that the launch of the COVID booster programme means that there will be no let-up for our local surgeries, and I, for one, would like to thank them for their terrific work on the vaccination rollout to date. One of the issues that has emerged from follow-up discussions is that we could do more to ensure local residents understand the terrific demand that our surgeries are currently facing. We could also help explain some of the approaches that have been put in place to manage this demand and why they are necessary. With this in mind, I intend to work with our local GPs on an awareness campaign in the local media. I hope that this will get underway in the very near future. Thank you, Chairman.
Chief Executives, two hands up. Yes, first of all, that's great.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to give members just a brief update on where the council is on our economic development and our recovery after what's been an unprecedented and challenging time, as I'm sure you'll all agree. And I hate to overuse the phrase challenging times, but I think it really does sum it up. The government response has been equally unprecedented in terms of the scope, the breadth and the depth of the response and the funding and the tools available to us as we support businesses and our local economy through this pandemic. And I wanted to just give you a quick update on where we are with some of the funding and what the local area is up to. So to start with, we have the Welcome Back Fund. This is one of the government initiatives. The economic development team have been working hard. We have an Instagrammability and mystery trails project running. That's out for tender, and we hope to have delivery in early next year, before March 2022. Rewilding Horsham is a project that was chosen to run. We're working in partnership with Creative Waves. They've been appointed as a consultant to oversee the administration and delivering of rewilding projects across 7 towns. So you may remember this is where towns across the district can rewild. We also have the Welcome Back Activity Fund, and that's been offered to the 7 community partnerships around our district. Pulborough have used theirs for funding their harvest fair. Fortunately, the weather was pretty horrendous, if I remember, but it was a hugely successful event. Henfield are using the fund to promote their weekly market and hidden Henfield website and put on Christmas shopping on the afternoon of the 10th of December. Horsham, the town's using the fund to help animate the Sunday Christmas markets. Storrington using the fund for Christmas shopping afternoon on the 4th of December. Billingshurst, we're using the fund to extend Christmas lights to adorn a large oak tree in the library car park. And Stenning and Southwater will also have plans there. I'll update members once they come to light. The big news is Pop-Up Horsham. We've done a press release very recently on the Pop-Up Horsham work. This is where we have changed the space, which some of you will know, on West Street that used to be formerly C&H Fabrics. And we're inviting local entrepreneurs and startup businesses to use that space. And we have a government approved use of all of the unallocated Welcome Back fund to go onto that project, which is really good news. East Street video campaign project, that's been commissioned. And this is to market Horsham food and drink choice and experience in the spring of 2022. We also have an exciting Meet the Local Buyers initiative. And this is planned to put buyers and producers together in Horsham so they can benefit from networking and other initiatives. You may also remember that there's a significant amount of funding available called the ARG pot. That's funding Pop-Up Horsham and also the LEAP grants. The LEAP grants are our micro business grants, if you like, which can be awarded to local entrepreneurs and startups. We've received 14 applications in the first month, and we have plans to extend with further rounds before December 2021. So that's given lots of local businesses and entrepreneurs vital funding and a real helping hand to launch their businesses. Shop improvement grants. We've had 18 applications so far with 12 approved, and we have plans to launch a new shop improvement grant specifically for landlords of vacant premises. And that's a pilot scheme currently going through internal process. We have an ice show skating rink at the Rec Rooms in December, independent of Horsham Council, but will benefit from town centre during the Christmas period, and various other initiatives that are ongoing. And I think also I'd like to mention some positive news for Pulborough, as the last empty shop is being filled in Lower Street. So that's great news. So I hope you'll agree and join me in thanking the economic development team and all the hard work that everybody's been doing, all the partnerships, all the cross county work and all the work we've been doing with our various consultants and partners as we try and give our businesses and our local economy that injection of cash and help that it desperately needs so that we can come out of this pandemic stronger. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The first thing I wanted to do was just, before I make a statement, is to endorse what the leader had to say about Roy. Roy said that, the leader said that one of the characteristics of Roy was kindness. And I had a vivid memory of his kindness on one occasion. Well, getting on for 10 years ago now. But I was having trouble with blood thinners at the time, and I had just after we'd had a meeting in the old Park North building, I had a really very serious nosebleed. And he took it upon himself to make sure I was all right. He made sure I was comfortable, and then he went off to the black jug and pulled somebody out of the black jug with the instruction they were to take me home. I thought that was absolutely marvellous. Because, you know, we listen to so much from the rather shallow types in Tinseltown who say, be kind. And the thing about Roy is he was genuinely kind. And the reason he was kind is because he cared about people. I know that. He cared about us. He cared about the people in his ward. He told me on a number of occasions how he really cared for their interests and was worried about the issues. And so I have to say, Chairman, it is to me and to all of us, it is a matter of great sadness that we attended Roy's funeral the other day. He was a kind and good man, and we are the poorer for his passing. Now, the statement I wanted to make is this morning we had a meeting of the West Sussex Council's Climate Change Board. This is chaired by the cabinet member at county, and it involves all the boroughs and districts in West Sussex, seeing how we can coordinate our action in respect to climate change. And Steve Reed was there, amongst a number of officials from the County Council. Steve Reed is, for those who don't know, is the Director for Waste Services at County. And we started at one stage, the subject of food waste collections come up. Well, as you know, we're looking at, we've got a trial going on in Billingshurst. We hope to have the results of that in December. And that trial will do much to inform our view as to the way forward in terms of food waste collections and in terms of waste collections generally, because it has knock-on effects. And what I wanted to draw your attention to is in the course of a presentation Steve gave, he said that he has had assurances from DEFRA, the sponsoring government department, that under something called new burden funding, which I'm sure our chief executive knows all about, but from a fund called new burden funding, the DEFRA have promised that there will be financial support for us in introducing food waste collections, which is very good news, and that it will be retrospective for those who've already introduced it. So I thought that's certainly something we can give us pleasure and we can bear in mind when we look at the financial aspects of food waste collections. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Service. Don't think there are any more declarations, so Chief Executive's announcements.
On a point of order, could I ask you a question, if you can be sympathetic with me?
Yes.
Chairman, I've just listened to the announcements from Cabinet. What surprises me is there is no announcement on the water neutrality issue. And the fact is that Natural England has instructed us not to take any developments forward. We've had 2 planning committees now cancelled. We're all aware that there is a great deal going on which could have a huge impact on this district. In fact, it's already had a huge impact on this district. I was expecting, actually, as we are full council, we don't often get together. I was expecting a notice. I had a statement coming forward on this. I wonder if we could hear something from someone.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chow. I guess it's the process that you're concerned about as opposed to the actual content of what you said. Is that correct as point of order?
Normally at council, we only meet every 6 weeks. So the next time we meet is 6 weeks' time. And quite often when we have something major going on, we do get an announcement on that. And this is, I think, the biggest thing that could actually happen to this district. We have actually running out of water, and it's having a huge impact on Pulborough Brooks, on of all these very important areas, especially in the south of the district, but it affects the whole district. And we're told that we cannot build any houses, we cannot extract any more water, and we have to deal with water neutrality. Now, any of us who spent the last 3 weeks, this is announced on the 21st of September, so it's 3 weeks, have had opportunities to read many of the detailed policies and documents that have come out in the last 12 months. It's amazing how they've all appeared just in the last 12 months. But there's some important reports now which affects all of us and the future of the district. I was expecting to have heard something. Last I heard at a meeting on Monday that something was being prepared. But I thought it would have come to council, because that's normally the way we do it. If we were having a council, you bring people up to date. Sorry, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Chow. I think that's a very long point of order, and I do take on board what you said. We are taking legal advice about this, I can assure you, and obviously when there is further information, it will be disseminated. But thank you for your point of order. Questions from the public? No questions relevant to the business of the meeting have been received, which brings us on to item 6.1 in the agenda, recommendations from Cabinet and Horsham District Council Housing and Homeless Strategy 2021 to 2026. I'll invite Councillor Tricia Utown, Cabinet Member for Housing and Public Protection, to present this item and move the recommendation.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We are very fortunate in Horsham District that we deliver a significant number of affordable homes, the highest number across Sussex in recent years. We have secured almost 1,600 affordable homes in the past 7 years, with a little over 950 being rented homes for those with a housing need on the Council's housing register. We need to continue to build on this and support local residents in housing need in a number of steps, or ways, should I say. Following consultation and presentations to the Housing and Public Protection Policy Development Advisory Group, 5 key themes have been identified which structure the strategy. These are: number 1, ensure no one needs to sleep rough through leaving no other choice. Number 2, empower residents to live independently in their homes. Number 3, deliver the number and size of affordable homes that our communities and residents need, in line with planning policies. Number 4, provide and maintain an accessible and fair housing register. And number 5, prevent all forms of homelessness for our district's residents. We know the areas we want to make progress within this strategy period to 2026, and we know some of the challenges we are likely to face. We have a vast amount of rich data, and we want to take a person-focused approach to shaping our future. The team will deliver the strategy in a phased way, taking time to understand our service as it currently stands before setting out a clear pathway to achieving our objectives. We want to know what's working well and what needs to be improved, and what areas we think are ripe for innovation. To that end, we are proposing a 3-stage strategy which undertakes initial reviews of key service areas. Of these, a review of our temporary accommodation, private rented service, and housing register are already underway. These reviews recognise that we can't adopt a one-size-fits-all approach, and we aim to increase the accessibility of accommodation and continue to provide the best possible option to households facing the challenges of homelessness. We are committed to our residents. If we can't prevent their homelessness, we will ensure the ability to secure and maintain an affordable home is within their reach. Following the initial work, in 2022, we will undertake an interim review, which will see production of detailed action plans with measurable schemes and outcomes, with a reminder of the strategy period being used to implement the proposed actions. Council is recommended to delegate to me, as the relevant Cabinet member, the responsibility to monitor performance against the delivery plan, with regular updates being presented to Cabinet. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Newtown. Is there a seconder for the motion? Thank you. That's Councillor Kate Rowbottom. Well, I'll open the debate to the floor and ask for any comments, anything anyone has to say about it. Martin Boffey, Councillor Martin Boffey.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wondered if, apologies, I'm new, but to ask a question. I was very interested in both the report. Thank you, the officers, to help assisting to put that together, and also the statistics that the Cabinet member just mentioned. I believe she said 950 affordable homes in the last X number of years have been delivered. I wondered, can you speak up? Apologies. I believe the statistic given for the number of affordable homes delivered in the last few years was 950. I believe that was correct. Just wondered if there was any, given the motion that's for debate later on, I wonder if there was any indication of how many of those were actually social rented homes.
I'm so sorry, Councillor Boffey. I really couldn't hear you properly. I think you're so tall that it's difficult to access the microphone. Could you repeat it? Yes, thank you.
I can indeed. Thank you very much to the officers for putting the report together, which was very enlightening, and also for the Cabinet members outlined just now. I believe she indicated that over the last few years, something in the region of 950 affordable rented homes had been delivered. Given the notice of motion that's on the agenda later on, I wonder if she had an indication roughly of the number of social rented homes that were included in that number. Thank you.
I'm afraid I don't have those to hand, but we can check it out and let you know as soon as possible.
A ballpark would be fine. 200, 300, 100?
No, I don't think we can do it. We'll have to wait until we've checked it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Anyone else wants to speak? Otherwise, if that's not the case, Councillor Rowbottom.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to congratulate Councillor Jan and her gang who've put together these recommendations. I think they're absolutely excellent, and if we can go ahead with them, it'll be a good thing. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowbottom. In that case, is everyone in agreement with the proposal that's been put to you? Thank you very much. It is carried. Thank you. Councillor, I think that we're going to deal with the local enforcement plan and civil enforcement policy next, and I believe that Councillor Lambert is going to speak to this one.
Thank you, Chairman. The purpose of the report, which is in your pack, is to set out the reasons for the Council adopting an updated local enforcement plan and a new community infrastructure levy, CIL, enforcement policy. The MPPF states that we should consider publishing a local enforcement plan to manage enforcement proactively in a way that is appropriate to their area, setting out how we will monitor the implementation of planning permissions, investigate alleged cases of unauthorised development, and take action where appropriate. Following the Planning Advisory Service review of the planning compliance function at Horsham District Council that was undertaken in 2019, it is necessary to update the Council's adopted March 2016 local enforcement plan to take account of current legislation and the recommendations of the review panel, who felt that the plan should concentrate more on the service priorities as opposed to procedure, and should be rewritten to make it easier to read. The CIL enforcement policy publicises the penalties for non-payment of the CIL charges, and to ensure that the Council does not lose out financially by non-payment of CIL and having to carry out additional tasks as a result of non-payment of CIL. Council does not currently have an approved SIL enforcement policy. Therefore, it may not be clear to those liable to pay the levy the likely consequences for non-payment or late payment. At their meeting on the 23rd of September 2021, the Cabinet approved the document, which has been updated following their feedback. I therefore recommend to full council that the local enforcement plan and the SIL enforcement plan are adopted.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, the Cabinet member. I wonder whether the Cabinet member could give us an indication, or perhaps the Director of Financial Resources could give us an indication of the amount of money that this council is owed from SIL contributions by developers at the current stage.
I'm sorry, I can't.
I guess you'll be able to come back with
Yes,
it for us.
we can look it up for you and come back to you.
Chairman, I believe a figure was discussed at a overview and scrutiny meeting just recently, and the Director gave us an indication of the figures. I don't know whether the Director was with us this evening, whether she could enlighten us, just to give some magnitude to this current problem.
Let's look at the Director.
Maybe I can help out. The first thing is actually it isn't a problem because in effect we're introducing this policy at a point where the collection is about to start, but the Director doesn't have the policy with her. The point of putting the policy in now, so we haven't got a big outstanding debt on it. It's about to fall due, so this policy is in place to make sure.
Does that help you, Councillor John?
As far as it does, yes. Forgive me, I just thought that the Director or one of the Cabinet members who was proposing this might have had some indication of its size of these debts and the reason why this particular action was being taken.
I don't think that there's any other comment that's going to be made, so I'm afraid.
Perhaps if something could be, a note could be circulated. Thank you.
Councillor
I seconded it, Chairman, so. I seconded it, so. Right, thank you.
Thank you very much. As the Cabinet member set out from the report to Council, it is necessary for us to update our local enforcement plan, last adopted in 2016, to take account of current legislation and the recommendations of the new panel to adopt a new SIL enforcement policy. SIL payments play an important part in improving local infrastructure post-development, and developers need to be made aware of the actions that could be taken against them for non or late payment. So I recommend both policies to Council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Roy. You've heard the recommendation, and it's been seconded. You've heard the comments that have been made. Obviously, there will be some follow-up for Councillor Chuck, who has made the appropriate questions. But in view of that, are you happy to vote for this, or do you wish to vote against? As those in favour, please. Any against? No abstentions. In that case, the recommendation is carried. Which brings us to item 6.3, recommendation from the Cabinet re the drill hall. Before we hear the Cabinet member for Leisure and Culture, I would like to just introduce Joseph Lyons, who's a representative of the Horsham branch of the Royal British Legion. He has been invited by one of the directors to address this council. Now, I did think about this, but I think that it will be helpful for all councillors to hear from the Royal British Legion on this item prior to the Cabinet member speaking and then introducing the debate. So, Mr. Lyons, I therefore invite you to address this meeting.
Chairman, councillors, thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you today. I'm Joe Lyons, member of the committee of the Horsham branch of Royal British Legion. Our chairman cannot be here this evening. He's unavoidably detained on business in the Republic of Ireland. The aim of the Royal British Legion in relation to drill hall is to provide a headquarters for the Horsham branch to replace its existing time-worn and unremarkable building that's flexibility in use with an iconic headquarters to be used to build on and improve the Royal British Legion's facility to the armed forces community, regular and reserve, serving and retired, with an offer of cooperation extended to sister organisations such as the Horsham Royal Naval Association and local regiment associations, Queen's Regiment and its successor regiments, the Sussex Regiment and successor regiments, the Queen's Regiment and Princess of Wales Royal Regiment, as well as former members of the Horsham Royal Air Force Association. The drill hall's implicit history as a military building will, if the Royal British Legion take on its use and operate as we envisage, will provide a level of continuity, therefore, for an element of Horsham's history in creating a special purpose for the forces community. The second aim is to extend community use of the building, both for the benefit of the Horsham community and as a means of raising funds for the charity through hirings as currently exercised in our present headquarters. Existing users of the drill hall have indicated they wish to remain and establish a new agreement with us. All existing users of our current HQ have expressed an interest in moving on similar terms. Current branch membership is healthy, steady 124 members or so. We intend to expand this as an important aspect of our branch strategy, and particularly to include younger members. As the organisation will establish a drill hall standing committee of volunteers in the way that we man all of our activities. Our volunteers bring a wealth of diverse experience with them, both civilian and military. The Legion naturally taps into this skill pool with Royal British Legion county and national bodies for support where necessary, largely free of charge. In short, the Horsham branch of the Royal British Legion will welcome the opportunity to operate this important building in the heart of our town, and you can be assured that it will be in good hands. Just to summarise the Armed Forces Covenant, the first duty of government is defence of the realm. Our armed forces fulfil that responsibility on behalf of the government, sacrificing some civilian freedoms, facing danger and sometimes suffering serious injury or death as a result of their duty. Families also play a vital role in supporting the operational effectiveness of our armed forces. In return, the whole nation has a moral obligation to members of the Naval Service, the Army and the Royal Air Force, together with their families. Recognising those who perform military duty unites the country and demonstrates the value of their contribution. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lyons. On the 100th anniversary, or the 100 years after the RBL was being formed, very appropriate. So thank you very much for that. I now turn to Councillor Roger Noel, Cabinet Member for Leisure and Culture. Thank you for your forbearance. And I'm sure you'd like to speak and present the recommendations.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Lyons, for your very informative
introduction to my recommendation this evening. And I'm very grateful that we've now been given an insight from the Royal British Legion on your proposal to become tenants and to take over the running of the drill hall. I'm also very pleased to present this recommendation, which, if accepted by Council tonight, will secure the future of the drill hall. As you're all aware, the long-term needs of the drill hall were assessed by Cabinet in January 2020. The report at that time highlighted that the building was underutilised, was considered suitable for decommissioning, and as a possible site for affordable homes. Of particular concern to the Council was the thermal performance of the building alongside the high ongoing running costs. I acknowledge that there was strong public opinion at the time, with the community expressing a clear preference for a community-focused solution for the hall. Cabinet listened and responded with a commitment to consider any viable bids from local organisations or groups that would be interested in running the drill hall. 3 initial expressions of interest were received from different organisations, but with just one proposal developing fully from the Horsham branch of the Royal British Legion, or RBL for short. RBL's proposal, as outlined by Mr. Lyons, will ensure that the building is upgraded, including vital improvements to the thermal performance. The drill hall would be let to RBL for 30 years at a peppercorn rent. I am particularly pleased that the proposal will provide the Horsham branch of RBL with a new headquarters, which in turn will provide vital support to our local veterans, military personnel and their families. RBL is also committed to continuing to support local community groups and enabling them to book and continue to use the drill hall for a range of activities and events as they are at present. At my recent Leisure and Culture PDAG in September, all elected members were invited to listen to RBL's presentation of their proposal. There was a full discussion and as a result, overwhelming support from the PDAG for the proposal. At the Cabinet meeting held on the 7th of October this year, full support for this recommendation was also given by my colleagues. If approved tonight by Council and then subsequently by the RBL Board of Trustees, our legal team will finalise all documentation in order for the drill hall to be leased to RBL from the 1st of April 2022. I personally feel that this is a really positive outcome for the residents of Horsham and the wider district, and would therefore recommend to Cabinet that, firstly, the drill hall is leased to the Horsham branch of the Royal British Legion from the 1st of April 2022 for a period of up to 30 years. Secondly, to delegate authority to the Director of Place in consultation with the Head of Legal and Democratic Services to finalise the legal documentation and enter into a lease subject to applicable consents with the Horsham branch Royal British Legion for the drill hall. And finally, and thirdly, to delegate authority to the Director of Place to agree and finalise a schedule of works with the Horsham branch Royal British Legion to improve the drill hall. Thank you.
Thank you for that clear and precise report. Is there a seconder?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to second. If I could chat at the end of the debate, please.
Thank you, Councillor Holden. In that case, I'll open the debate. If anyone wishes to speak, please do so. Councillor Mitchell.
Chairman, can I share your remarks when Joseph Lyons of the Royal British Legion Horsham branch spoke a moment ago? Because clearly, with Her Majesty the Queen, who is patron of the Royal British Legion, marking the centenary yesterday at Westminster Abbey, I mean, this really is a wonderful and joyous occasion that we have at the Royal British Legion Horsham branch to celebrate this wonderful outcome. Really, I think a fitting day and more fitting evening. To get to today, in about about 18 months, has really been a phenomenal community spirit by the Royal British Legion, and especially the Royal British Legion Horsham branch, but also the Queen's Regiment Association Horsham and the Royal Sussex Regiment Association, and many others. The neighbourhood councils, residents, councillors across the chamber, and many who are connected to the drill hall personally or through family, and others who are not, recognise its historic and architectural importance as well, and community use. Of course, there was a petition and a very vibrant campaign to find a future home, how this hall could be kept for another 100 years, because of course the hall itself is coming up to its own centenary. And the Royal British Legion, as we heard two others, but the Royal British Legion came and stepped up to the plate, and they worked constructively and professionally, diligently, and they did that in such a professional way. They didn't shout about it. They were fantastic, and they worked with our officers and our former cabinet member, Councillor Chowan. And Councillor Chowan was at the very first meeting that I came to with the Legion, and Francis Hay was not here this evening, with our officers, Adam Charles, and others. And they were able to hit the ground running. And I just want to come back to that in a moment, if I may. Now, we do know the history of the hall, but I do think it is just worth reflecting, because it has important historic resonance in our town and district. The two regimental associations are inseparably connected to the hall, and they always will have that enduring connection to it. And their service to this district and Queen country shows that the drills hall importance is so important, and the values that it stands for. It's got great social and community ties to our district and town. And of course, it was opened in December 1927, and importantly by Lieutenant Colonel Godmer, who designed the War Memorial. So architecturally, for our district and town, it is of incredible importance. It was built by public donations and with the efforts of the 4th Battalion of the Royal Sussex Regiment, and was an important social space. Erected by the 4th Battalion, it has continued and endured today to represent all that is great of the armed forces and our district and town. From the Second World War, of course, many were mobilised from the drill hall, many never to return. And of course, the site played an important role in the Cold War. And then post-war, it was, of course, the site for the Territorial Army until it closed in 1999, and the Ministry of Defence sold it to Horsham District Council. So the poignant connections are there. What I want to do is just return perhaps to the Royal British Legion. This night really, the great sadness I think is that the late Nigel Caplin's not here, having passed away before Christmas. And when I was chairman, he came to see myself in, I think it was in September 2016, end of September, with Councillor Chowan and Trevor Beevil. And he wanted to share with myself as chairman and with Councillor Chowan very exciting ideas that the Legion had for engaging with the community, and that included the cadets, but it included not only veterans, but non-veterans, because the Legion, like all organisations, whilst remaining true to its founding reasons, of course, is needed to engage with those that are not veterans or do not necessarily understand everything that the armed forces do for our country. And so they are then, and I'm sure they will be, looking to engage with the wider community, with those that might want to come and drop and set coffees and so on. And so he wanted to share those thoughts with us. And so when this opportunity for the future of the hall came up, they really were able to hit the ground running and almost have an oven-ready plan. And because I'd met Nigel with Jonathan back in September 2016, I mean, I had absolutely no doubt, I said this that the Legion could take this one. Nigel, not only with his commitment to the Legion, had been involved in capital projects in our town, such as the job centre. So he knew planning and he knew how this could all work. So, Chairman, really what I want to say is that this is going to secure the future for the hall, for the community. There had been debate before whether it was too big for certain community uses, but then too small for other community uses. And in the last few months, because of the health pandemic, we have seen, and you know, COVID will not go away, and unfortunately there will be other such pandemics, no doubt, in the future, and influenzas, the importance of having space. And so the hall is going to be a fantastic, maintaining is going to be a fantastic addition in perpetuity for our district. And I think it makes perfect sense to be with the Legion. Not only will they be able to use it for all the ways that has been described today, but for the wider community. I know that there were many people who wrote to me at the time who were very attached to it, and Robert Piper, Legion to Honour, wrote to me, and he was very moved about it and said he worried about its future, and said to me, I hope for my mates that it not come back, that we would be able to keep it. And so when Robert Piper, Legion to Honour, wrote to me on the 26th of January last year, in that incredibly moving way, I knew that we would have to, and we have, Chairman, this council has been everywhere to get to this fantastic position. So thank you to the Royal British Legion, thank you through you, Chairman, to Councillor Knoll and the Cabinet Leader, and to Councillor Chow, who was at that very first meeting last year. And as I say, of the Royal British Legion, within something like 89 weeks, a year and a half, I think Council gave 2 years for a community to come forward. You have done that in less than the time set. Congratulations, but of course we would have expected nothing less of you to have come forward with a plan that is sound and secures its future. So congratulations to all, and on this very poignant day. It is very sad, of course, that Nigel's not with us, but I know that all those that work with him and his widow will be very pleased with this outcome. So thank you.
Thank you for that overview. Councillor Burgess.
Thank you. I strongly support this. I've been involved with it with Nigel for quite a long time. One of the points about it is that it's going to give a very great enhanced facility for our community. There are enormous things we can do with this hall. Sorry, is there a problem?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I can hear myself. Through the loudspeakers. So there's a very great future for the community here, but I'm going to be speaking as the Armed Forces, a champion. And as I said at Cabinet, things don't look too good until now, because the various associations which we have been involved with, including RAFA and the RNA, were failing because they had nowhere to go. The fact is now, by having this facility, which will be restructured with specific facilities which the armed forces can use, means that we can now, once it's running, plan ahead to get back, to bring into the fold the veterans of armed forces, which currently, with the exception of RNA, which has just found somewhere to go, which is in Warnham, it means that we'll have a central, easily accessed item, hall, which can be used by all armed forces.
By that I mean there are various types of armed forces. I'm concentrating at the moment on the veterans who need somewhere right now, and this will give it to them. The cadets. Horsham is really fortunate to have a very vibrant cadet force, Army, Navy, and Air Force. The Air Force are fantastic, the Army are fantastic. The Navy needs somewhere to go, and they will be moving in, well, hopefully, to move as their headquarters there, and that they can now build up. So that's veterans, that's the oncoming thing. And the last thing is, in Horsham, we've got nowhere for serving personnel to meet or go. Now we can say, okay, Horsham district doesn't have any armed forces units here, but it's got a lot of people living here. So this is absolutely fantastic. When it first came up, I was told by members all over that this simply wouldn't happen. And I'd like to pay particular tribute, which has already been paid, to the late Untitled Chapter, because it was his vision which drove it forward with the members of his team, and has now been taken over by Zal Rustrom, who sadly is not here tonight, but I know that he will be driving this forward. So we've now got a new great asset. Christian Mitchell looked at the past, I am looking to the future, and it looks good. So I do strongly support this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Burgess. Councillor Wofford.
Thank you, Chairman. In view of my elevated height, I will oblige. Anyone who knows me knows that the fate of the drill hall is an issue which is very close to my heart indeed. I'm therefore very pleased with the recommendation we have before us this evening. Since moving to Horsham 18 years ago, I've attended many events at the drill hall, from the Big Nibble to the Horsham Beer Festival, of course, and from a fascinating presentation on Wilder Horsham District Initiative to a full council meeting when it was the only space that could accommodate us safely with social distancing. I've also performed there numerous times myself with the Horsham Borough Band. It has the largest sprung dance floor in Sussex, which I'm sure in a few years' time my son won't thank me for saying that at 6 years old he's a raging Strictly fan, but hopefully it'll be there for him to trip the light fantastic in some years' time. I believe it's even held annual general meetings of the Horsham Conservative Association. So quite simply, where would we be without the drill hall? But make no mistake, we as a community came within 72 hours of that happening in January 2020. That was the recommendation to Cabinet. I checked last night, it was to close it down and decommission it. No consultation, that came later. Even the neighbourhood councils, the Horsham Society and the Queen's Regiment Association were only briefed 72 hours before the Cabinet meeting at which the hall's fate was originally due to be sealed. I know this because I was there, and so was one of the gentlemen this evening from the Queen's Regiment Association. I have to say this was a serious lapse in stakeholder management, which must not be repeated, and from discussions I've had with the Deputy Leader, I'm sure it won't be. I take him at his word. It was only through the efforts of the three neighbourhood councils, the Neighbourhood Forum, the Horsham Society and town members, including Councillors Haig and Mitchell, that we were able to extract a 2-year breathing space from this council for another proposals to come forward. Oh, and not to forget the 5,000 concerned residents who signed a petition within the space of 1 week to stop this awful decision from being taken. Members may ask, quite rightly, why I am going over old ground when hopefully we're about to reach a win-win happy ending, which I sincerely hope we are. But the fact is, there is still a live issue underneath all of this, which we will need to address going forward. I'm a member of the Royal British Legion. I love it. It's a fantastic institution of which I am proud to be a member, and there is no doubt in my mind that they will be excellent custodians of the drill hall and will embrace and support users from across the community. But there's a little question that remains of why we, as a local authority, have become reliant upon the generosity of others to provide what we should be capable of providing ourselves. The drill hall is a district scale facility, but it also, I must say, as a neighbourhood councillor, was as the main community hall for Horsham Town. Given that the southern half of the town is unparished, its residents are reliant on HDC to provide the facilities that elsewhere are provided by the parishes. So how are we doing at this? Well, let's see. Our town hall is now a very nice restaurant. Our drill hall will now hopefully pass to the stewardship of the Royal British Legion. We are renovating a small community hall in the Needles to an excellent standard, which I really welcome. And we may yet deliver a community facility at Highwood as well. But even in these latter cases, the aspiration seems to be to wash our hands of the running of these facilities and instead convince a third-party anchor tenant to manage them for us and just hope that the community users don't get too much of a raw deal. Personally, I do not believe this is good enough for Horsham, and I won't stop saying so. Now that's enough of the negative stuff. That's for another day. For now, there is so much in this proposal to be excited about. I share with both Christian and Peter talking about the past and the future about this. The drill hall has been part of the fabric of Horsham's community, both military and civic, for nearly 100 years. It resonates with our history when you go there, but I firmly believe that with some care and attention, it can be an important part of our future as well. I'd like to thank the officers of the council, in particular Adam Chalmers, Clive Burley and Brian Elliott, for the constructive approach they have taken to working with the RBL to help them fully formulate their proposal so that it can be recommended to council. No easy feat on either side. I'd like to say a personal heartfelt thank you to RBL Chairman Zal Rustam, Joe Lyons and their colleagues for persevering with this project, even when the odds seemed stacked against them. And like the others, I'd like to pay a special tribute to the late Nigel Kaplan, former chairman of the RBL, for whom I only knew for a short time, but I count him as a very good friend indeed. He poured his heart and soul into this project, as he did with everything he did for the RBL and for our community. And in his memory, I would ask members to please vote in favour of this proposal. Thank you.
Councillor Jack Sain.
Thank you, Chairman. I have one little question for the cabinet member, please. You mentioned the revenue from the British Legion is peppercorn, which means very, very little. Can you tell us, or is it possible for you to say what the revenue will be per year, please? If it's private, you don't have to say it.
Thank you, Councillor Steed. It's far from private. Peppercorn actually means peppercorn. It's a matter of a few pounds per annum.
Okay.
Does that satisfy you?
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Surface.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm sorry to say that the idea that the drill hall was 72 hours from closure and demolition is complete tripe. I'm actually reading from paragraph 1.3 of the officer's report, detailing a summary of what happened at the cabinet meeting. On
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, that's not what I said. I said the decision was 72 hours away, not demolition. I'm not an idiot. Thank you very much.
Well, if there'd been a decision to demolish, its fate would have been secured, but that's not true either. The point is, I'm reading here from the officer's report, summarising what happened at the cabinet meeting on the 30th of January. At the meeting, it was agreed to commission an independent study of the community buildings and facilities across the district and in Horsham Town. Test whether there were organisations or community groups that wanted to manage and run the drill hall, and to consider viable bids for its ongoing management. To decommission the drill hall if no viable bids were submitted, and to replace it with affordable housing. So every opportunity was given as a result of the decision of cabinet members that night for an alternative to come forward for the future of the drill hall to be secured. The future of the drill hall has been secured, and I, for one, am very, very pleased that this part of the fabric of the town is going to be maintained. Actually, what I wanted to ask is this, also, it's really a comment rather than a question. At the cabinet meeting, I raised the point that obviously this is going to be a lengthy lease, 30 years, quite a long time. A lot happens in 30 years potentially. And we need to, and our excellent head of legal has already confirmed this and understands this, that we need to be very, very careful in the way we draft that lease to make sure it delivers what we need it to deliver in terms of the benefits we seek from that arrangement. But it also occurs to me that we are in the process of developing environmental standards in relation to our commitment to achieving net zero in terms of carbon emissions. It also occurs to me that in this fast-moving area of the environment, there is likely to be changes to the obligations that the government imposes on us. We will be actually touching on this, I have no doubt, when we look at specifically the environment motion later this evening. So what I would do is express the hope that in drafting that lease, we not only make sure that as far as we can, with 30 years to go on this, that we secure the community benefits that we want, but also make sure that it will reflect the emerging standards that we as a council are working on in terms of the environment and specifically carbon reduction, and any changes there might be to the standards in society generally, particularly as a result of government legislation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Circus. I have one more speaker, Councillor Hogman. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I support the proposal before us. I can attest to the sprung floor from over 50 years ago. Could I just ask, forgive me, I didn't attend the cabinet meeting, but I think it was on 1.3 or 1.2 of the document. It talks about £1 million. There was an estimate of £1 million to put the building in appropriate order. Am I right in thinking that that is a cost that will be borne by the Royal British Legion and not by Horsham District Council? Because I don't think it's clear in the report.
Thank you, Councillor John. Yes, to the best of my knowledge, that is a cost that is going to be borne by Royal British Legion in order to gain a lease for 30 years at a peppercorn rate, which I think is a very fair deal. Thank you.
Thank you for that reply. No other questions from the floor in statements. Thank you for those. Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. It's very difficult for this council. Often we have conflicted objectives. My colleague Councillor Circus mentioned the environmental credentials, and that is an issue that was faced by the previous cabinet with the drill hall. It was an ageing building with a low energy rating, and we will indeed in future years face similar issues around our other council assets. The pavilion spring to mind. That may cost millions, multi-millions of pounds to refit or relocate that building, and there could be some difficult decisions regarding the level of investment that we will need on that building in future years. I personally would like to thank the previous cabinet for starting this consultation. I'd like to extend a vote of thanks to Councillor Chowan and Councillor Dawn and the other previous cabinet members for starting what was being an honest and open consultation. I would also like to thank the town members, Councillor Burgess, Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Haig, and the other town members for their active involvement in getting this over the line, as well as the officers, Clive Berlin and the Chambers in achieving what is an epiphany. Councillor Said asked some questions around the finances. This was a loss-making building. This particular building potentially was costing us £30,000 a year to run and was making a loss. In order to bring it up to an environmental standard that we would be happy with, would potentially cost hundreds of thousands of pounds over the next few years. And obviously we do have a duty of care to our taxpayers when we're spending the council's money to review what is right and what will the public accept. And we listen. Previous cabinet listened, we've listened as a cabinet. I think we've delivered, and I'm very pleased to be seconding this motion today.
So I don't think I have anything further to add other than to thoroughly endorse the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor. You've heard the debate and it's time to vote. All those in favour of approving the recommendations on page 15 of the agenda, please show. Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? So the motion is carried, and I'm sure we look forward to a partnership with the British Legion. So well done, thank you. Brings us to item 7, which is item 7, which is the reports of representatives from outside bodies. We've now had a request to give a report, so I would like to ask Councillor Dana van der Kloek to speak regarding the South Downs National Park.
Thank you, Chairman. I was mindful of the comment you made in your minutes of the previous meeting about encouraging representatives to give reports. I thought it was about time I gave a report about the South Downs. There are 3 items that I wanted to mention. First of all, the Shoreham Cement Works, which I think many of us, particularly in the south of the district, are familiar with. And as we drive down backwards and forwards to the A27, wonder what on earth is happening with it. It is a 44-hectare site, which in acres I think is about double that. And it includes an inactive chalk quarry and some semi-derelict industrial buildings to make cement. And it is situated in Horsham district, but it's also in the park. So it is therefore under the jurisdiction of the South Downs so far as planning is concerned. And it was when the South Downs adopted its local plan in July 2019, this site was allocated as a strategic site for development in that plan. And the park's main objection to the site, as set out in the policy, is to restore it in a way that is compatible with the special qualities and statutory purposes of the park. It's regarded as an opportunity for an exemplar, this is what it says, an exemplar sustainable mixed use development, delivering a substantially enhanced landscape and environmentally led. And to enable that to proceed, the park has to prepare what's called an area action plan. And that is really a kind of master plan to give a broad outline to potential developers as to what their development would have to conform to. And a task and finish group has been set up to drive that area action plan forward. And I have the privilege of being on that as the representative of Horsham. And we've started to have regular meetings to forward the area action plan. Down the line, there will be a public consultation when we get to the, I think it's called the issues and options stage of the area action plan. And it eventually, it will have to go to examination as the plan delivers. So things are happening on that front. The second thing I wanted to mention was the launch of a campaign by the park in July, which is the South Downs Nature Recovery Campaign, which they've called Re-Nature. And the idea is to work with partners to respond to the nature crisis. The ambition of the campaign is to increase the area of land in the park that's managed for nature from the current 25% to 33% by 2030, and to encourage the remaining 67% to be nature friendly. And I think most people understand that the park doesn't own the land, apart from a tiny bit they've just acquired, the Seven Sisters site. So they work in partnership with mainly farmers and other landowners. And there is a nature recovery information hub, which has now gone live on the park website. That's at southdowns.gov.uk/nature recovery. And I would recommend that to everyone as a very useful resource to understand the role that we can all play in assisting nature to recover and consequently to help mitigate climate change. The final point that I wanted to mention really came into my mind when my colleague, the issue of water neutrality, and I have been very much looking into in recent day actually how the South Downs National Park is dealing with that issue currently. So I just wanted to say a word about that. And I'm really referring to information that's available on South Downs website. So this is all in the public domain. It's this document. On the website, the South Downs website, they have posted up the position statement on water neutrality, which they've received from Natural England. And they say that anyone considering submitting planning applications in the affected area is advised to read the guidance note in full. Now, the affected area is the Sussex North Water Resource Supply Zone, and that includes parts of Chichester, a lot of Horsham, maybe all of Horsham, I'm not quite sure, Horsham district, I mean, and Arran areas. And I wish to make it clear that I'm talking from the point of view of the South Downs National Park here, so I'm only referring to the part of Horsham district, which is a very small part, which is within the South Downs National Park, that's affected by that is within what I'm saying, this guidance. This area in the Sussex North Water Resource Supply Zone is served by groundwater abstraction near Pulborough, which of course is in my ward. And this has the potential to impact upon the Arran Valley, which is a special area conservation, a special protection area, and a Ramsar site. And the hydrology, which I've had to look up, means water quantity and its movement in the area is essential to maintaining the habitat upon which the designation features species rely on. And that is at risk, basically, because of lack of water. So what it says on the South Downs website is that development proposals that would lead to a material increase in water demand will need to demonstrate water neutrality. That means that there would be no increase in water consumption demonstrated by a combination of water efficiency, water recycling, and offsetting measures. And it goes on to say that planning permission will be refused for development in that part of the national park within the Sussex North Water Resource Supply Zone, which is above a set threshold guidelines, unless the planning application can demonstrate water neutrality. And it then sets out the guidelines. Basically, if it's a very small application, then it doesn't have to show water neutrality, but if it's above a certain threshold, it will have to show that, and if it can't, then the permission will be refused. And the announcement. This is the South Downs announcement. It also says that it should be noted that water neutrality is a rapidly changing area of concern. So This is a very serious matter, one that affects Horsham, that affects the South Downs National Park, and we need to keep a close eye on what's going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Van. I've learnt a lot. I think, like all of us, we need to know more about water neutrality. I'm sure it's going to be a major concern. So, thank you. And for your work on it. You will also have seen in the on your web or on the emails and on the iPad that Councillor Tony Hogben did put something about Gatrick greening. It's a committee that he attends. He didn't wish to speak about it, I think probably because we've heard a lot about Gatrick, but actually he was put on something concerned about. I don't know whether you wanted to say it.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Chairman. I'll just send the link round.
Thank you very much. So anybody else who does go to represent us on outside bodies is very welcome, and would be great to hear from you to give a report to this council. Item 8, to note in-year changes to membership of committees. That's for noting the changes are in the agenda. I don't propose to say any more about that, which brings us to item 9, notice of motion. 3 notices of motion have been received, all in accordance with Rule 4A26 of the Constitution. We will consider these motions in the order in which they were received. I anticipate that this may take longer than 30 minutes. I'm suggesting we have 15 minutes maximum on each motion, and should it be less, then I'm sure some people will be satisfied. So the first motion that I have before me, I invite Councillor Liz Kitchen to present her notice of motion. Councillor Kitchen.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Can I take it as read, or do you want it?
I'm happy for it to be taken as read.
Take it as read. Thank you very much. I'd like to make it quite clear that this is not, absolutely not, an anti-Gatrick notice of motion. As I think probably everybody in this room, support Gatrick Airport. Where I differ from that is that I can't support the expansion of the emergency runway into the second runway, which it will be, on the grounds that I've written in the notice of motion, so I'm not going to repeat them, they're all there for you to see. But it's not just using the existing emergency or northern runway, as it's called. It's altering it by a big amount. It's bringing in new taxiways, and I think the effect on the local people while that is happening will be great. But what it also means is that they'll be using the same flight path. So once the aeroplanes have reached a certain height, I don't know the height, but it's not very high for those who live underneath it. Instead of getting, say, 1 aeroplane a minute, we'll be getting 1 aeroplane every half minute. And although aeroplanes are undoubtedly getting quieter, there's no two ways about it that it's a continuous noise is almost worse than having the odd one come over. So that, not to mention, I think it says there are going to be 70% more passengers. Well, the railway line can't cope with anymore now, in spite of the redevelopment of Gatrick Station. We've still got the bottleneck of Croydon. So, and goodness knows what happens when you get down towards Hayes Heath. They get in a terrible mess. The trains I'm talking about get in a terrible mess down there. And if you heard when Gatrick was at its peak, the Gatrick Express, which was meant to take half an hour into London every quarter of an hour, was actually running half an hour late, which I thought was quite clever. So I don't quite know where they caught it up from. So all in all, I think the congestion and all that will go with it, both up in the skies and down here on the ground, the lack of infrastructure, there's virtually no infrastructure planned. I understand from the planning officers that the areas that have come out for this, discussing it is so complicated that even they can't understand all of it. So I ask you all, I'll keep it brief as we said, I'll ask you
all to support my notice of motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kitchen. Is there a seconder?
There is, Chair.
It's Councillor Mike Croker. Thank you. Do you want to speak now or later?
I do, please, Chair.
You want to speak now?
Yes. Okay. So it will come as no surprise to members that I was pleased to hear Councillor Kitchen announce at our last meeting that she intended to bring forward a motion regarding Gatrick Airport's expansion proposals. Unlike Councillor Kitchen, and indeed many other current members, I was not present at the January 2015 council meeting when, I quote, the leader indicated that he wished to revise the wording of the recommendation A in the report by removing the words does not support and replacing them with the words strongly opposes. In some ways, the fact that I'm standing here today addressing this council is a measure of how far public opinion and, more importantly, public concern and willingness to act has moved since 2015, when incidentally I failed to get elected to this council. Indeed, a recent innovative DEMOS survey of some 20,000 people indicated overwhelming support for a wide range of climate changing mitigation measures, including a carbon tax and a frequent flyer levy, which will result in the UK meeting its 2030 carbon reduction target. In other areas, the 6th IPCC report said that climate change is already affecting every inhabited region across the globe, with human influence contributing to many observed changes in weather and climate extremes. With regard to air travel, the UK's Climate Change Committee recently said that there should be no net expansion of UK airport capacity unless the sector is on track to sufficiently outperform its net emissions trajectory and can accommodate the additional demand. It also said that lack of ambition for aviation demand would result in a 15% higher emissions in 2030 relative to their proposed carbon budget. In that budget, it says steps should be taken to limit aviation growth in line with our scenarios, which for their balanced net zero pathway allows for a 25% growth of passenger numbers by 2050. It assumes that this occurs without any net increase in UK airport capacity, so that any expansion is balanced by reductions in capacity elsewhere in the UK. Whilst it is true that current airport proposals do not involve a complete new southern runway, although still a possibility, their northern emergency runway proposals do involve a 62% increase in passenger numbers by 2038, accompanied by a 30% increase in direct employment. I do hope members appreciate the massive disconnect between Gatrick's proposals and those of the Climate Change Committee, which I would characterise as a complete mismatch of ambitions. Of course, it's not all about carbon, and Councillor Kitchen has spoken of some of the other issues involved with airport expansion in Gatrick. But in summary, I urge members to support this motion, to give a clear direction to those tasked with producing this council's response to current consultation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Kitchen, for raising this important issue with members today. Through its Northern Runway programme, Gatrick Airport Limited proposes to bring its standby runway into everyday use for airport departures. This will lead to 2 runways at the airport. In addition, other technological improvement measures are proposed by the airport to significantly increase airport capacity. Together, these proposals are anticipated to see passenger throughput at the airport grow to 75.6 million passengers per annum by 2038, up from 2019 pre-COVID levels of 46.6 million passengers. Whilst I agree that the economic benefits of the proposals are welcomed, this represents significant expansion and comes at a time when concerns regarding climate change have never been greater. Indeed, this council has committed to take practical steps to tackle climate change, aspiring to become carbon neutral by 2030, alongside other key initiatives to improve the district's environment. In 2015, this council agreed to strongly oppose runway expansion at Gatrick Airport in response to the Airport Commission's assessment of additional runway capacity at Gatrick and Heathrow airports. This is currently the agreed position of the council on any runway expansion at Gatrick Airport. Gatrick Airport proposals are classified as a nationally significant infrastructure project. The planning application will therefore be submitted to the Planning Inspectorate with a decision ultimately made by the Secretary of State. This is different to the normal planning applications process dealt with by local planning authorities and requires the council to respond within tight timescales. Gatwick Airport Limited launched its statutory consultation on the Northern Runway proposals on the 9th of September, and they run until the 1st of December 2021. The consultation is supported by a very high level of technical and evidence-based documents, which officers are in the process of reviewing. Owing to the tight statutory timescales for response, which do not fit with the Council's programme of meetings, it was agreed by Cabinet on the 22nd of July 2021 that the response to the Development Consent Order would be delegated to the Director of Place in consultation with myself as the Cabinet Member for Planning and Development and the Cabinet Member for the Local Economy, together with the input of Councillor Kitchen, given her extensive experience and engagement as the Council's representative of GATCOM, and also Councillor Mike Croker. At this early stage of the consultation, it is, in my view, too soon to provide any formal feedback on the Council's position in light of the consultation. However, it is clear that the Gatwick Airport expansion proposals have the potential to very significantly impact the district, and I will ensure that members are kept informed of the progress on our response. I would, however, like to reassure you that the Council is proactively engaging the DCO process to ensure that we put forward the views of the Council and represent the district, its environment and the communities affected by the proposed expansion. This will, of course, address the impacts on climate change which you raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anyone else wish to? Councillor
Well, Chairman, I wanted to thank Councillor Kitchen for bringing this motion, because although the policy of this council until we vote shortly has been to be opposed to the second one at Gatwick, I think the time was right actually to be debated, not least because I think there's a lot of frustration out there Gatwick Airport Limited that the Howard Davis Commission, having reported in 2015 that there should be a second runway in the southeast, but that should be at Heathrow, not at Gatwick, have brought forward this proposal to convert or expand the emergency runway. Of course, they can find a different name. And so, having gone through that debate, this council went through that, and Howard Davis came to met with councillors and other stakeholders at Crawley, which I attended, with Councillor Vickers and others, and Councillor Dorr was very much involved with that. People are very frustrated, to say the least, about it. And I concur with what Councillor Kitchen said. This has nothing to do with wanting to ensure that the dynamism that Gatwick brings and all the jobs surrounding it doesn't stop. This is about future expansion over and above what the government's own commission, and they, of course, Parliament has accepted that recommendation. The government accepted it. There was a vote on it. Heathrow pre-pandemic was just under, or essentially at 100% capacity, but pre-pandemic, Gatwick Airport was at 85% capacity. And the other part of the debate that no doubt, as I recall, that Howard Davis explored, was the debate with those that use airports and manufacturers of whether hub airports were still going to be the future or point-to-point airports. So he looked at all of this, and so did we. And the arguments that Gatwick put forward that hub airports were not the future, and people would, and businesses and transport and freight would come on sort of 787 type Dreamliners would go from just one airport to another and not have something like Heathrow. That was the future. It was not something that we persuaded in. So we want Gatwick to resume, and I'm quite sure it will after all the downturns, whether we think of the crash in the 80s, whether we think after 9/11, whether we think after the first Gulf War, the second Gulf War, after the downturn in 2007, after there has always been a downturn, there has always been a very quick and rapid bounce back in the economy, the aviation industry. And I happen to read that in fact there's now a shortage of pilots in the UK because so many had taken redundancy packages. So I am quite sure that Gatwick will get back to where we need it to be, and those that live in our town here in Horsham particularly, and our district, and most particularly of course of Crawley. But what we're debating of course is expansion over and above, and revisiting an issue that this council and others, West Sussex as well, the Parliament and the commission that the then government had asked Mr Davis to look into, Sir Howard Davis, has resolved and put to bed. So thank you, Councillor Kitchen, for bringing this forward, and I wholeheartedly support it, and again reiterate that we want Gatwick to continue to be the most successful single runway airport in the world, and long may it continue at that. But future growth over and above what further capacity allows brings all the stress and strains on the infrastructure, some of which we've touched on today, not least water, but roads, schools, hospitals, all of it that we don't know that I don't need to go on. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Len. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Burgess.
I'll be quick. I simply cannot see this working. Okay, whether Gatwick do it or not, the problems and with all the various things they put forward, having operated out of Gatwick for a long time, okay, the runway is being moved, and I'm just saying the same thing as I said when we last talked about this. I simply cannot see in practical terms that this will have the effect they intend. But I don't want to go on about that because I support what Councillor Kitchen says. I just want to bring in a red herring, if I may, and that is that while they're sitting there thinking about this, can we go ahead and make sure that we use the strongest possible words, equipment, anything we can find to get the safe area to the south of runway 26 left ditched and make it up for housing, etc. This is an ideal time now to do that because they're not going to expand. But I do support what Liz Kitchen says on this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burgess. I'm sure it's not a red herring, but I'm sure it's something that will be debated at some stage or other. And I'm sure Councillor Kitchen will agree with that. But before us is the motion, and I'd like to ask you to vote. All those in favour of the motion, please show. Any against? Any abstentions? Oh, you have your motion confirmed. I should have invited you to speak again, but I thought you probably said it all. So.
I'm quite happy not to.
Thank you. The second motion is one by Councillor Mike Croker, and I'm going to ask him to present his notice of motion.
Thank you, Chairman. Members are happy. I won't read the whole shebang out and merely start talking about it. So, firstly, though, I need to thank Councillor. It is indeed, Chair. Sorry, try. Oops. Is that any better?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Let's hope I can manage both. I'd like to thank Councillor Circus for his some pro bono advice really on the way the motion was worded. It was gratefully received. As a member of Councillor Circus's PDAG, since I joined this council, and more recently the climate change group, I've become well aware of the enthusiasm of officers and many members to recognise the increasingly urgent need to decarbonise Horsham District as part of the national effort. I've also experienced the increasing frustration at times in lack of decisive government action to facilitate this council to get the job done. Where it does have the legislative powers and budget, and waste and recycling material collection, for example, is a good example. The council does a good job, and all involved in the operation should be thanked, especially for their willingness during the current pandemic. However, when it comes to achieving the many other facets of getting to net zero in response to the climate emergency, responsibility is dispersed across government departments, and local governments are required to compete for seemingly random pots of money. I have to ask, would this be how the UK would fight a physical war? And be no doubt that climate change is as much as a threat as any past war on our collective future, albeit with somewhat longer timescales, although perhaps those caught up in the recent flooding in Germany or the wildfires in Australia and California might question just how long that timescale is. When I first read of the local government's proposals for a national framework and climate task force, I immediately thought, not another committee, or as Greta Thunberg would put it, not more blah, blah, blah. However, on reflection, such a task force would, if properly resourced, be able to join the dots between the direction of travel spelt out so vividly by the Climate Change Committee and the willingness of local authorities who are best placed to get practical and effective results. The key word in motion, I believe, is action. For example, many recognise that a massive infrastructure effort is required to improve England's housing stock of over 22 million dwellings. As thumbs are twiddled and green carrots dangled briefly from time to time, the problem gets worse, both in terms of the number of well, that's a new one. I think I got to action. Perhaps that was the wrong cue. For example, many recognise that a massive infrastructure effort is required to improve England's housing stock of over 22 million dwellings. As thumbs are twiddled and green carrots dangled briefly from time to time, the problem gets worse, both in terms of the number of dwellings to treat. We are still building houses that will need improvement in less than 30 years' time, and the rate of treatment, which I roughly make 1.5 dwellings a minute until 2050. So I would ask members to support the motion with the hope that it would join a chorus of similar from other local authorities, and that central government will at last take a firm grip on the problem rather than relying solely on market solutions. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, please, Chairman. I could just simply say, I agree. I thought, I asked for that, didn't I, Chairman? But I'm not going to say very much, you'll be pleased to know, and I did. Yes? One of the reasons I was very pleased with this motion is this morning, as I mentioned, we had a meeting of the West Sussex Council's Climate Change Board, and we went round the districts and boroughs to ask, individual authorities were asked, what are you doing to mark COP26. And I said, we've got a motion. And with my fingers and toes crossed, I'm hoping that council will approve it tonight. And I said something, I said that actually, one of the good things about this, action is quite right. As an administration, we prefer action to words because that's ultimately how we'll be judged. But the idea of establishing a joint local and national government task force is so important because what you need on environmental issues and on climate change is joined up thinking and joined up action. And if I can slightly deviate, one of the problems of the water neutrality issue is that it's come out of left field. We weren't, as far as I know, given any inkling that this issue was going to arise. And of course, it's causing us a considerable problem in terms of our planning function and the creation of our district plan. So joined up thinking, joined up action is so very important. I'm very fortunate, Chairman. I don't think all my colleagues feel as fortunate as I do, that I have a PDAG where there seems to be an excess of unanimity and agreement. Indeed, Councillor Ruth Fletcher give me the honour, I think I can call it that, of leaning over the table once at a PDAG and saying, I agree with every word you've been saying, which gave me a sort of bit of a crisis of personal identity. And she's followed that up recently by the privilege. I wonder how many other people have had this privilege of being invited to have a ride on her electric bicycle. Sorry, Ruth.
With clarification, the offer's open to everybody. But I'd be delighted to let anybody have a go on it.
So in that spirit, and the spirit that we have within my PDAG, I'm hoping that all members will feel able to support this motion because our effectiveness on environmental issues, our effectiveness, one of the reasons that in a very real sense, we lead the pack in terms of a number of environmental issues is because the agreement and unanimity that we have as a council working together. That is absolutely vital on these issues. And I hope you'll demonstrate that tonight by voting for this motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Surface. Does anyone else wish to add further to this debate? Well, it's been proposed by Councillor Croker and seconded by Councillor Surface. All those in favour of the motion? Any against? No abstentions? Thank you very much. The motion is carried. Thank you. The third motion is a motion originally, I think, placed by Councillor Potter, but as she is unable to attend, Councillor John Mill will present the motion on her behalf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll also take the wording of the motion read, if I may. The UK crisis in housing affordability is acute. Alarmingly, the situation continues to get worse over time, not better. The government's answer is a dramatic increase in house building in areas such as ours. Yet price inflation continues even in the pandemic. Why isn't it working? Simply because we're building the wrong kind of houses. For decades now, the number of homes available for social rent has been falling. There's no clear national target, but the UK's leading housing charity, Shelter, argues we should be building 150,000 a year. Last year, however, we only managed less than 7,000 across the whole country. And that's not enough even to replace the homes we lose through demolition and right to buy.
So while it's correct to say that Horsham District has been delivering more of what are classified as affordable homes in recent years, this statistic needs to be seen in the context of our extraordinary construction boom. You could equally say we're building more executive houses than ever before, because we're building more of almost every kind of home than ever before. The fact is that despite the rise in the headline rate of affordable homes, we're actually missing our targets by a very long way. For example, the North Horsham development, largest site under construction in the district at the moment, will deliver less than half the affordable target we normally aim for. Even that is over-flattering to our situation when you consider what this word affordable means. Affordable to who exactly? Under David Cameron, the definition of affordability was watered down so far that it's become meaningless. A home provided at 80% of market rate is still way beyond the means of many people in a high-priced areas such as ours. To understand local need, we should be looking at local wages and local people, not some mathematical algorithm coming out of central government. I question to what degree any of the houses we presently classify as affordable are in reach of those who need it most. A serious gap has opened up between the maximum local housing benefit that is available and the average private rent, and it's leaving people stranded. We've become so obsessed with talking about our stratospheric house building target, we've actually forgotten what the point of it was. Allegedly, the justification for this step change in housing delivery is that it will make housing more affordable. But if the new houses we build are more expensive than the houses we already have, it only pushes average prices higher. No wonder our affordability ratio isn't getting any better. There's no obvious upper limit to this, and if members believe that signing off on another 20,000 odd houses this time round will solve the problem, they're wrong. All it's going to do is increase the target next time. The most effective answer to our affordability crisis is in fact to build more homes for social rent. Nothing acts faster on affordability problems than a healthy dose of social housing. Increasing delivery is good for those in need because it will provide them with genuinely affordable homes along with security of tenure. And it's good for the local economy because it enables essential but lower wage workers to actually live in the area. It really is a win-win. For the new local plan, practically the only thing that's been receiving serious debate is the physical location of the big sites. What we've missed along the way, and we're all guilty of this, is the quality of development and the policies governing this. Is the housing genuinely affordable? Will it be built to higher eco standards? What community facilities will be provided? We're not paying enough attention to quality. Providing homes for social rent is both an official national policy and an official local policy. But we're only asking for it as one option within the housing mix. We don't specify any particular figure. So as it stands, the current vague requirement to provide homes for social rent is no better than a ghost policy. A policy which sounds nice, but which in practice is not going to have any practical effect. We've all of us sat through any number of planning sessions where our hands are tied. We're told we can't ask any more of a developer because the local plan policies don't support us. The instruction from planning officers is that unless a condition is specifically supported by a policy, we have no power of enforcement and we can't defend it at appeal. It's incredibly frustrating for all of us as councillors and it's bewildering to residents. The way to fix this is to set more precise metrics in the local plan. Above all, we need to stop relying on developers to do our social policy for us. Developers will always be motivated by the bottom line. That's only natural. They're commercial outfits after all. Social housing is always going to be the least profitable type of housing for a developer to provide. Given the freedom to choose, they choose not to. So is a 35% target achievable? Well, it must be because other councils are doing it. South Oxfordshire has set a 35% target, while in London, the mayor is looking for 60% of all housing to be affordable, and that's despite the obvious challenge of sky-high land prices in London. These are ambitious, transformative targets. The opportunity to fix issues like this only comes around once in a blue moon with the local plan. We need to seize the day. We need policies that set robust standards, policies that will equip us with the right ammunition
to fight for the kind of communities and environments we can be proud of. Without stronger metrics, it will be an uphill struggle. We're setting ourselves up to fail against developers of the fuel. So I urge members, let's not spend the next 5 years regretting a missed opportunity. Legally defensible targets will empower officers to achieve better placemaking. This motion today focuses on social rent, but the same strategy can be applied to other policies in the plan. The Lib Dem group would welcome the opportunity to talk through possibilities outside this meeting. Setting a target for homes for social rent is a win-win situation. It's good for the low paid and for struggling families. It's good for people who don't want to see our green spaces disappearing, and it's good for the economy as a whole, as more people are freed to grind of basic survival and are able to contribute meaningfully to society. I ask all members to support the motion so that we can serve our residents better. Who knows, this way we might even get to enjoy planning meetings for the next 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mill. Is there a second for your motion?
Yes, Councillor Fletcher.
Do you want to speak now or later?
I'll speak now, thank you. Thank you very much. The local plan proposes building at least 18,700 new homes in the current draft. Who are we concreting over the countryside for? Only about half of these houses are even claimed to be there to meet local need. The government is telling us to build the rest as a penalty because our house prices are too high. They will draw in new residents from places like London, which have more highly paid jobs. But the housing shortage is at the bottom, not at the top of the housing market. These houses will do nothing to help those who do vital work in the district, but can't afford to live here and have to commute in from miles away, creating further carbon emissions. They will do nothing to help young adults stuck in precarious house shares or back at home with mum and dad. They will do nothing to help elderly relatives squeezed into their adult children's house. They'll do nothing to reduce the debt, stress and insecurity caused by high housing prices, in combination with disability, illness, family breakdown and uncertain employment. Not only is affordable housing in short supply, for many, affordable housing simply isn't. Social rented housing is a vital element missing from the mix. The draft local plan says it will support and encourage a proportion of social rented homes. But the draft doesn't include evidence to justify our need, and there are no targets or policy to help us get the precious funding or to deliver even a single social rented home. Even with a fixed target, we know it's not straightforward. We have a 35% affordable housing target, and it's only resulting in about 20% being delivered. With our new housing strategy, I trust there will be an urgent review amongst its reviews, and the development of proposals and a target will be included in the Regulation 19 stage of the local plan before it's brought to the council.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fletcher. The floor, haven't got round to that yet. I'll just say that we're just going to have the debate. You would like to speak to it?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Mill. Thank you also, Councillor Potter. I wholeheartedly agree that the provision of affordable housing in Horsham District is a critical issue. As you know, we have worked hard as a district to deliver homes which everyone can afford. Indeed, the council has delivered the highest number of affordable homes in West Sussex over a number of years. However, as I'm sure you are aware, our local plan policies must be based on evidence in order to be found sound. There is a very high bar for evidence where policies are proposed which go beyond the requirements set in national planning policy. This will be the case for a policy proposed by this motion. Nevertheless, as part of the preparation of the local plan, officers from strategic planning, development management and housing have worked together to consider the evidence to support a specific policy requirement for social rented housing. As social rented properties do not generate significant levels of revenue, they must be cross-subsidised by other means, including grant funding or more commercially focused products such as shared ownership and more general affordable rent. It is therefore difficult to deliver very high levels of this type of home based on available funding models and cannot realistically be developed on a large scale. However, in order to ensure that we can aspire to deliver the highest level of social rented homes possible, the emerging local plan policy states that social rented provision will be strongly supported in appropriate locations. This reflects advice from housing, who have identified that they are likely to be occasions where development which is more favourable to provision of social housing will arise. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I would like to endorse the points made by Councillor Lambert and further add that colleagues within the housing team welcome the affordable rented homes secured through our planning policies. As Councillor Lambert noted, the Council has consistently delivered the highest number of affordable homes in Sussex. We have secured almost 1,600 affordable homes in the past 7 years, with a little over 950 being rented homes for those with a housing need on the Council's housing register. Despite these numbers, there is still a growing need for affordable homes in our district, so we need to ensure that we maximise the number of affordable rented homes that can be secured through the local plan. As members will know, affordable rents are set at a level below local housing allowance rates and are affordable to those on our housing register seeking alternative accommodation. Setting the rents at this level means that households that need financial support through housing benefit or the housing element of universal credit can receive assistance with their full rental costs. For households receiving partial financial support in respect of housing, the level tapers in line with household income. This helps to ensure affordability depending upon individual circumstances. We occupy every new affordable rented home delivered in our district. There is a real danger that failing to follow the evidence produced during the local planning process would result in an overall reduction in the total number of affordable homes being built. Therefore, although I do understand the premise behind the motion proposed, I think it fails to follow the evidence and does not take into account the funding arrangements of our registered provider partners, and sadly could lead to increasing the number of households on our housing register. However, I would like to propose that the final paragraph of this motion is amended to read the following. The Director of Place, in conjunction with the Director of Community Services and Cabinet members of Planning and Housing and Public Protection, to prepare a report to be presented to a joint plan which identifies how best to deliver affordable housing, which ensures each new development maximises social rented homes on new sites to achieve at least 35%. So can I just reiterate that I endorse the motion with the final paragraph, which I would like amended as I've just read. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Utam. So, can I just get the wording correct before we debate this one? So, the final paragraph at the moment reads, we therefore propose that of the affordable housing provided in each new development, at least 35% should be reserved for social rent.
Yes, I'd like that to be replaced with the Director of Place in
Someone's typed it out for me now. It's very good, isn't it? Really? I couldn't keep up with you anyway. It's an amendment, therefore, is there a seconder for it?
Sorry?
It is an amendment, there is a second. Councillor Lloyd, thank you. Yeah. Right, well, as is normal with amendments, the amendment now has to be debated. The order of speaking is proposer of the amendment, and the seconder will have spoken unless you want to speak again. Other members, and the final speech will reply by the mover of the original motion.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, may I seek some clarification on this amendment before we debate it? On the exact meaning of it.
Sorry, say it again, I'm so sorry.
I'm just seeking a little clarification on the meaning of the amendment.
Yes.
Well, firstly, that would any changes thereby agreed be in time to be included in this local plan?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And then, secondly, you're saying. So in the context of a minimum threshold of 35% and a range of such other alternative percentage, go up to 50% or something like that, you said. So I'm a little bit confused because you appear to be saying that you didn't want any percentage of social rent, but then you appear to be saying you're talking a 35% minimum. I'm confused.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
What I'm actually saying is that we are, remember that I stated at the beginning, when I presented the strategy, that we were going to be planning for about, for at least a year, the new demands on social, affordable, rented and social housing. And that will continue. So what I'm saying is that we would like to present a report which runs concurrently with this new strategy that we're presenting. And remember that it's not adopted yet, to ensure that a joint PDAG identifies how best we can actually deliver affordable housing and ensure that each development does maximise social rented housing on new sites to achieve at least 35%. And we've put that in because obviously it's an aspiration that we too are very much keen to ensure that social rented housing, we're aware, is important. We are very aware of it. We are also aware of and I hope that you remember that we have developed a new housing homes policy. We've got our own company, which really was quite innovative. So consequently, I hope that it is appreciated that I have considered right from when I first took this portfolio on. Sorry, I should be standing, shouldn't I? That I considered housing to be of paramount importance throughout the district, and that I don't think it should be politicised, and I still continue thinking that. I genuinely think that it is of such importance that we should pull together, irrespective of political affiliations, in order to try our level best to address what is a very real problem, not just in the Horsham district, but across the country. And I think that it should be stressed and understood that that is the sole parameter. It's not a political issue in any shape or form as far as I'm concerned. And I have said that consistently at my PDAG. I want it to be a joint effort on behalf of all councillors that we improve the lot of our residents, and particularly those in literally at the bottom and who require the most help. And that is our ambition. Okay. You're looking confused. Have I confused you?
Well, I'm taking out of it. Oh, sorry. I'm taking that you are agreeing to look at the possibility of putting a minimum 35% and that you're suggesting we do this in a cross-party way, and that it would be whatever outcome was, that it would be in time to go in the
Okay. In that case, I personally support it.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Fletcher.
Sorry, I was also slightly confused about the wording and whether or not the wording meant that the report was simply going to look at whether 35% would be achievable, and if it wasn't, there's nothing achievable, or whether the report was looking at whether 35% was achievable, and if, say, it decision was it wasn't, to look at what the maximum was that was achievable. So I wonder whether you could just clarify whether that's the case.
Councillor Fletcher, I'd love to if I understood what you're saying. Sorry. Can you sort of put it in simplistic language?
Thank you very much. It's difficult to do these things on the fly, and maybe in future it would be helpful to have some of the amendments in advance so that we can have looked at them before we arrive here. I just was trying to understand whether the 35% was, in your mind, a figure that we either passed or failed on, or whether, if you looked at it and discovered there wasn't scope for 35% in the policy, whether you would be looking at what figure you could put in the policy. It's an alternative.
Yes, I think that's fair enough. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chairman. I won't read off a piece of paper like everyone else has, and I hope you can hear me. Is that all right? Yeah? Good, excellent. So I'm one of the youngest members of this council, and I also probably one of the few who live in rented accommodation. And I went to a birthday party over the summer for a one-year-old, as a new father you now do. And at this birthday party, 3 of the 10 families who were there were telling me about how they could no longer afford their rent. They live in Storrington and Ashington, and they were literally saying, I'm digging into my savings to be able to survive. And it really broke my heart, because these are young professionals. They were all had gone to university. They had the people had to stay at home for childcare. Family weren't around, so there was only one wage. But that is a story that you'll be hearing across the district. And I am lucky to represent Storrington, Washington, a village of 11,000 people. And in that village, there are only 2 homes to rent for under £1,500 a month for 11,000 people. And that's incredible, isn't it? At the same time, I, on Saturday, was walking around Storrington, and I chatted to a resident who's called Sarah, and she was saying that her family last year moved into a shared ownership home, and her family had moved from paying rent to paying a small rent, and now paying a mortgage. And that was all possible because of the social housing that was put into a development in Storrington. Because housing is a ladder. You can't just have one form of housing. You need to have a variety in a development. And that's why the emerging local plan is so good, because it doesn't set limits, minimum limits. It has a ladder of all forms. And also, we shouldn't demonize the people who can afford their homes. If you can afford a home that is not affordable, that's good for you, and you should be allowed to buy that, because you'll have a bedroom, a kitchen, a place safe for you or your family to grow up. This council should be very proud of its record on the housing company. We have now, I believe, 3 or 4 people who have moved into homes built by this council on land that we own. And this council also brought forward proposals last year and the year before to build several hundred affordable homes on the edge of Horsham at Brookwood. And then also at the Drill Hall, which this evening we've voted on another proposal. But this council is very committed to building affordable homes for its people, because it's naive to think that any other way exists out of this issue than to build, 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 and build back better. Because we have to build homes for my generation and future generations, because without building, there'll be nowhere for these people to live. So when you come to vote and think about housing issues, think of my 3 friends who literally cannot afford to live in Horsham anymore, even though they've grown up here, even though their children go to school here, they cannot afford to pay the rent. And that is a failure on all of us. And I look forward to the opportunity to correcting this by working with the cabinet member and also the emerging local plan, because it's such an important issue, as is water neutrality, but also having places for people to live is so important. So I look forward to discussing this further.
Councillor Christian Mitchell.
Thank you, Chairman. It was expanding on Councillor Wright's point, because Councillor Wright is a real life example of young people in the villages, and I was very cognizant of that because, of course, some have read the CPR piece of research in today's national newspapers. They have done a piece of research through YouGov on precisely that, and 84% of young people in our villages, this was those 16 to 25 that were surveyed, were saying that the lack of affordable housing in villages is leaving them feeling loneliness, meaning that 2 in 5 young people expect to leave. 2 in 5 young people expect to stay in the countryside over the next 5 years. And so if 3 in 5 leave the countryside, then of course our villages collapse, because if there's not young people to populate and keep it going, they're not using the facilities. The post offices are left, but some still do, and the local pub and the schools. So Councillor Wright's exactly right. We need a mix of all housing types, not just owner-occupied of all different sizes, but across the whole spectrum, including socially rented and socially affordable. And so I support the amendment. I'm pleased that Councillor Mill has endorsed it. You don't need to vote on the amendment, but Councillor Mill was prepared to amend his motion in a cross-party way, because we've got to work on evidence. And as has been said, this council has a proud record of housing, and we have always been very tenacious in how we achieve that. And so through the report, which I think will come forward, we will find out whether 35% or whatever percentage, it might be 50%, I don't know, it might be that there are ways and means working with developers that we can get what we need. But yes, 35% or more, but as to what we can achieve, I don't think we can resolve that tonight. We need the evidence based. So thank you for bringing forward my support the amendment of the motion, but certainly Councillor Wright is spot on, because this is a critical issue for our villages, and we are really, as we know, a very rural district. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bottom.
Thank you, Chairman. This has been very interesting and rewarding debate to take part in. I acknowledge that there clearly has been a commitment over a long time from this council to deliver on affordable homes, and I will be brief, but there is an issue around affordable and what is affordable and what is not affordable. A definition that sets something at 80%, it doesn't cut it in terms of where we're heading, really. I look forward to receiving the information at some point about how many social rented homes have actually been delivered in this district in the last few years. I look forward to receiving that figure with great interest. When we were talking about the funding streams and the grants and things, one thing that was not mentioned in any of that was our use of commuted sums fund, which the report received earlier said was healthy. I would just note in that report also said that over the last number of years we've delivered 17 units of short-term accommodation. Fantastic. We need that. That's really great. It also delivered 99 units of affordable rented. When you get to social rented, it was 1. 99 to 1. I agree that this is a difficult issue, and it needs to be handled with care, but we must do better than that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buff. We've gone over our time allocated for this debate. Can I just read the amendment, and hopefully I have it right? We're accepting the first paragraph. We move this council wishes to reconsider the latest proposals for the provision of housing for social rent under strategy policy 16 of the new local plan. In its current form, the policy does not specify any minimum requirement for social housing. This may result in low or even zero delivery on some sites. Therefore, the Director of Place, in conjunction with the Director of Community Services and Cabinet members of Planning and Housing and Public Protection, to prepare a report to be presented to a joint PDAG which identifies how best to deliver affordable housing, which ensures each new development maximises social rented homes on new sites to achieve at least 35%. That is the now substantive motion, and that is what you're going to vote on. If you are happy with that, and if anybody, well, you're not going to say anymore because we've been over our debate. So I'm going to ask you that if you are happy with that, will you vote now? Please. If there is anybody who is against it, please vote now. Anybody who wishes to abstain? Otherwise, that is the motion that is carried by this council. Thank you very much for that. We have no members' questions on notice. We have one following item considered as an urgent item by Cabinet on the 7th of October because of the tight timescales required, and therefore I'm going to ask the leader, Councillor Clark, to speak to this.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm acting in local parentis for my finance colleague who's away on a course. The consultation by Gatrick Airport Limited on the Gatrick development consent order to bring in the standby runway into routine use began on the 9th of September, and it finishes on the 1st of December. Our in-house strategic planning service lacks some of the specialist skills and knowledge needed to ensure that we gain the optimal outcome for our residents and businesses. We don't have the skill sets. This means that we will need a budget to spend on consultants to do this work, especially in view of the dossiers that have been given to us by Gatrick. Setting budgets is, as you know, a matter reserved for decision by full council. The report recommends, and I am bringing to council, to set up a reserve to cover the cost of using consultants to give the council the information it needs to respond fully to the consultation by Gatrick, and also to make sure that the Secretary of State is aware of the impact on our residents and any necessary mitigations that we need, should he be minded to approve the DCO, the Development Consent Order. The Director of Corporate Resources has suggested setting up a reserve rather than a revenue budget, because we are not yet clear of the details of the spend and whether work will be needed beyond this initial period. The Council is minded to approve the reserve. The report then recommends delegation to the Director of Place in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Planning and Development to allocate the funds as work needed becomes clearer. The recommendations you can find page 33 of the papers that you have. I'd also point out that I know that other councils are going down a similar route. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Do you have a second if you want to propose? Councillor Ritchie, thank you very much. Do you want to speak now? Or the proposal, therefore, is to set up a reserve fund for us to employ consultants pre the development of the Gatrick situation. I'm going to open the debate. Anybody wish to speak on this? No, I don't think so. In that case, Councillor Ritchie.
Well, this must make sense because at previous consultations, I've known parish councils to actually spend their precept on taking advice. It's simply too complex, I think, to expect laymen to detail for officers to have all of the necessary expertise. So it is, in my mind, quite normal to go down this route, and therefore, for that reason, I second this proposal.
So the proposal is as before you, and to set up a fund for this. I'm going to ask, does anyone disagree with that? In that case, can I take it you all agree with this? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed. The motion is carried, and that concludes what has been a long meeting. Thank you very much for your patience and for here and contributing.